Rebecca stood outside the hospital room 304, with her hand pressed against the cold wall, listening to her younger sister Olivia sob into their father's shoulder. Through the small window in the door, she could see them, a tableau of grief she wasn't quite part of. Her brother James sat in the corner, face buried in his hands. Little Sophie, only 14, curled in a chair like a question mark, her school uniform still on. Their mother had been dead for 6 minutes. Rebecca knew because she'd watched the clock, 11:47 p.m. She'd watched the second hand make its indifferent circles while the nurses disconnected tubes and monitors, their movements practiced and gentle. She'd stood there, dry-eyed and steady, because someone had to be. The door opened. Her father emerged, his face a ruin of red eyes and exhaustion. He was 51, but looked 70 in that moment. He saw Rebecca, and something shifted in his expression. Not quite relief, but close. Recognition, maybe. The kind you give a familiar tool when you need it. Rebecca. His voice cracked on her name. The funeral home? Someone needs to call them, and the church. Your mother's sisters need to be told. I don't know if I can. I'll handle it, Rebecca heard herself say. The words came automatically, like breathing. Of course you will. He touched her shoulder briefly, gratefully. You're so strong, just like your mother. Strong. There was that word again, the word that had followed her since she was 15, when she'd started making dinner because her mother worked double shifts. The word that meant capable of bearing weight without complaint. The word that meant, we need you to be smaller so we can be bigger. She was 22 years old. She'd been in her 3rd year studying literature at Brighton University. She'd had a tiny dorm room that smelled like instant coffee and old books. She'd had a boyfriend named Thomas who wrote terrible poetry and made her laugh. She'd had a future that looked like hers. Past tense. All of it. Past tense now. Just for a while, her father said 3 weeks later, sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by bills he couldn't decipher. Until things stabilize, until I get my feet under me. The kids need someone. Rebecca looked at the acceptance letter she'd received that morning, a scholarship for a semester abroad in Florence. She'd applied months ago, before the cancer came back, before the hospital became their second home, after. How long is a while? She asked. Her father's eyes were empty wells. I don't know, sweetheart. I just don't know. And she stayed, because, of course, she was the strong one. The first year was supposed to be temporary. Rebecca told herself that every morning when she woke at 5:30 a.m. to pack school lunches, cutting sandwiches into triangles because Sophie claimed they tasted better that way, remembering that James hated mustard, that Olivia was trying to be vegetarian this month. She told herself temporary when she took the bus to her new job at the accounting firm, a position her mother's friend had arranged. Entry-level, mind-numbing, stable. She told herself temporary when she attended Sophie's parent-teacher conferences, when she helped James fill out his college applications, when she held Olivia's hair back during her first devastating heartbreak and subsequent drinking experiment. You're so good at this, her Aunt Patricia said during one of her rare visits. So maternal. Your mother would be proud. Maternal at 23. As if she'd given birth to siblings who were only 4, 6, and 8 years younger than her. The second year, she stopped saying temporary out loud. She'd moved into her mother's role so seamlessly that the edges had blurred. She was the one who knew everyone's schedules, who noticed when James was being bullied, quieter than usual, picking at dinner, who realized Olivia was shoplifting, new makeup she couldn't afford, who understood that Sophie's sudden academic excellence was anxiety masquerading as perfectionism. She worked at Harrison and Webb Accounting by day, a gray office with gray carpets where middle-aged men made jokes about women not understanding numbers. She smiled tightly and processed invoices. At night, she worked the evening shift at the Willows, a nursing home where she helped feed elderly residents who sometimes called them by their daughters' names. She let them. The money barely stretched. Her father contributed what he could from his warehouse job, but there was never quite enough. Never quite enough. Love came, tentatively, in the form of Marcus, a soft-spoken teacher she'd met at Sophie's school during a science fair. He was kind, patient. He didn't mind that their dates always ended early because she had to get home to let Sophie in after orchestra practice. He said he admired her dedication. He proposed on her 26th birthday. She said yes, and then watched the relationship dissolve slowly over 8 months because he wanted to travel, to wait to have children. Ironic, given she was already raising 3. To live spontaneously. He wanted a partner, not a woman who fell asleep on movies because she'd worked 14-hour days. "You're married to your family," he said when he left. Not cruelly, just factually. He wasn't wrong. The 3rd year, James got into university, a good one, Durham, studying engineering. The acceptance letter arrived on Tuesday, and he'd whooped with joy, spinning Sophie around the kitchen until she shrieked with laughter. "I did it! I actually did it!" Their father clapped him on the back, beaming. "Your mother would have been over the moon, son, over the moon." Then James looked at the financial aid package, and his face fell. The scholarship covers tuition but not accommodation or living expenses. That's another £8,000 a year. The kitchen went quiet. Everyone's eyes drifted to Rebecca. Not directly, that would have been too obvious, but in that peripheral, expectant way that made her stomach knot. "I'll pick up more hours," she said, because what else could she say? James's face flooded with relief and gratitude. "You're the best, Becca, seriously. I'll pay you back. When I graduate and get a job, I swear." "Don't worry about it." She was still waiting for Olivia to pay back the money she'd lent for driving lessons 3 years earlier. By the time Rebecca turned 30, she'd become a ghost in her own life. Not literally, of course. She was painfully, exhaustingly present, cooking Sunday roasts, remembering birthdays, organizing Christmas, mediating sibling arguments, covering emergency car repairs. But some essential part of herself, the part that had once written poetry in margins and dreamed about teaching literature to university students, had eroded so slowly she'd barely noticed its absence. It was Sophie who held up the mirror, accidentally and without malice. They were shopping for Sophie's university accommodation. She was starting at Bristol, studying medicine, full of fierce ambition and clean edges. At 22, she was everything Rebecca had been supposed to become. "You should get something nice for yourself," Sophie said, pausing outside a boutique displaying a beautiful emerald dress in the window. "When's the last time you bought yourself something that wasn't practical?" Rebecca genuinely couldn't remember. "I'm fine. We're here for you today." Sophie's face did something complicated. "You're always fine, Becca. Doesn't it get exhausting, being fine all the time?" "Someone has to be." "But why does it always have to be you?" The question sat between them like a stone dropped in still water. Rebecca didn't answer because she didn't have one, or because the answer, because I'm the oldest, because I'm dependable, because if I'm not fine, then everything falls apart, felt too pathetic to say aloud. They moved on. They always moved on. That same year, Olivia got engaged to Preston, a marketing executive with a wide smile and a trust fund. The wedding was elaborate, expensive. Rebecca helped plan it while working her 2 jobs. She'd added weekend shifts at a call center. Bills never stopped. "I want you as my maid of honor," Olivia said, her eyes bright with happiness. "You've always been there for me, always." Rebecca stood beside her sister at the altar in a lilac dress that cost more than her monthly grocery budget. She watched Olivia marry a man who'd never had to choose between dreams and survival. During the reception, several elderly relatives patted Rebecca's hand sympathetically. "Don't worry, dear. Your turn will come." She was 32. Youth wasn't currency she possessed anymore. 35 arrived without ceremony. Rebecca marked it alone in her bedroom, the same bedroom she'd had since she was 16, though everyone else had long since moved out. James was working in London as a structural engineer, making good money, sending occasional text messages about how grateful he was. Olivia lived in a renovated townhouse in Bath with Preston. Sophie was finishing her medical degree, already talking about specializations and research opportunities. Their father was downstairs watching television, a nightly ritual. Rebecca looked at her reflection in the mirror and saw a stranger. When had the lines appeared around her eyes? When had her hands started looking like her mother's, capable, worn, always in motion? She opened her laptop. For the first time in 13 years, she Googled university programs for mature students. The possibility felt dangerous, forbidden, like wanting something for herself was a betrayal of everything she'd built. But God, she wanted it with an ache that felt physical. She found a program, literature and creative writing, exactly what she'd abandoned. There was a scholarship for women returning to education. The application deadline was in 6 weeks. She started writing her personal statement at 11 p.m. and didn't stop until 3 a.m. Words poured out of her like a dam breaking, all the years of silence, the deferred dreams, the slow starvation of self. She wrote about her mother, about sacrifice, about discovering that love can sometimes be a trap disguised as duty. She submitted the application before she could talk herself out of it. 3 weeks later, on Sunday dinner, roast chicken, roasted vegetables, Yorkshire puddings, all made by Rebecca, as always, she decided to speak. "I have something to tell everyone." Her father looked up from his plate. James and Olivia were there too, a rare joint visit. Sophie was on video call from Bristol, her face a small rectangle on a propped-up tablet. "I've applied to university." Her voice sounded strange, too loud. "To finish my degree. I got in. There's a scholarship. I start in September." The silence was cavernous. Then James laughed, a short, startled bark. "Wait, seriously?" "Yes, seriously." "But you're 35, Olivia said, as if Rebecca forgotten, as if the number wasn't something she carried like a stone in her pocket. "I'm aware." "Becca, that's..." Sophie searched for words on the screen. "I mean, isn't that kind of impractical? What about work?" "I'll manage both." Her father set down his fork carefully. "Rebecca, sweetheart, I understand you're feeling restless, but you have responsibilities, stability, a good job. This idea of going back to school at your age, chasing some old dream? It's not some old dream, Dad. It's my dream, the one I gave up to raise your children." The words came out sharper than she intended, truer too. Olivia's face flushed. "That's not fair. You didn't have to." "Didn't I?" Rebecca looked around the table. "When Mom died, who stayed? Who dropped out? Who worked multiple jobs so James could go to Durham, so you could have your perfect wedding, so Sophie could focus on studies instead of part-time work?" "We're grateful," James said quickly. "You know we are. But that was your choice." Your choice. As if she had one. As if saying no had ever been an option. "This is a mistake," her father said with quiet finality. "You'll regret it. You've built a good life here. Don't throw it away chasing something unrealistic." Unrealistic. The word hung in the air like poison. What's unrealistic about wanting something for myself? No one answered. Sophie's voice came through the tablet, small and uncomfortable. Maybe you should think about it more, Becca. Really consider if it's the right time. The right time, as if there'd ever been a right time for her. Rebecca stood up. Dinner's in the kitchen if anyone wants seconds. I'm going to bed. She left them sitting there, bewildered and slightly offended that the reliable one had suddenly become unpredictable. 2 weeks later, her father called a family meeting. Rebecca assumed it was about her university decision. Perhaps he'd come around, perhaps they all had. She walked into the living room with cautious hope. Everyone was there. James and Olivia sat on the sofa. They all wore expressions Rebecca couldn't quite read. Her father stood by the fireplace, nervous energy radiating from him. I've asked you all here because I have some news, important news, about the future of this family. Rebecca's stomach tightened. I've been lonely. These past few years in this house alone, I felt like I'm just existing, not living. Your mother wouldn't have wanted that for me. Oh no. I've met someone. The room held its breath. Her name is Vanessa. We've been seeing each other for 8 months now, and, well, I've asked her to marry me. She said yes. Chaos erupted. Squeals from Olivia, congratulations from James, Sophie's surprised laughter through the tablet speaker. Everyone talked at once, a cacophony of excitement and questions. When do we meet her? She's here, our dad said, and opened the door to the hallway. Vanessa walked in, and Rebecca's world tilted. She was young. Not young like a contemporary, but young. 29 at most, maybe younger. She had that fresh-faced brightness that Rebecca had lost somewhere between the second job and the 3rd year of sacrifice. Long auburn hair, a nervous smile, a trendy outfit that looked effortlessly assembled. She was younger than Rebecca. Younger than the daughter who'd raised these children, younger than 13 years of putting everyone else first, younger than every single sacrifice, sitting in this room, breathing, and not noticing the obscenity. Everyone, this is Vanessa, our dad said, his hand on her lower back, proud and proprietary. Vanessa gave a small wave. Hi, I've heard so much about all of you. It's wonderful to finally meet everyone. Rebecca couldn't speak, couldn't move. Olivia jumped up to hug her. Oh my God, welcome to the family. This is so exciting. James shook her hand warmly. Great to meet you. Dad's been so much happier lately. Now we know why. Sophie's voice chimed from the tablet. This is amazing. When's the wedding? They all talked, planned, celebrated. No one looked at Rebecca. No one noticed her silence wasn't the comfortable kind, but the kind that precedes earthquakes. Her father was glowing. Vanessa's been so good for me. She's helped me see that life isn't over, that I deserve happiness too. She's brought light back into this house. Light. As if Rebecca had only ever been shadow. Now the house will feel complete again, Olivia said, squeezing Vanessa's hand. It's been too sad for too long. Complete. The word was a slap. As if their sister, the one who'd held them together, who'd been mother and sister and safety net, had only been a temporary placeholder, a fill-in until someone better came along. Rebecca stood up. Everyone finally looked at her. Congratulations, she said. Her voice sounded normal. Amazing how you could sound normal when everything inside was shattering. I'm happy for you, Dad. Thank you, sweetheart. I knew you'd understand. She smiled, nodded, walked upstairs to her room. She locked the door, sat on her bed, and felt something inside her break. Not violently, but quietly, like ice cracking under invisible weight. She'd given 13 years. Her 20s, her early 30s, her youth, her dreams, her potential relationships, her education, herself. She'd given everything. And they'd celebrated her replacement with someone who'd given nothing.
I understand that my story can be so triggering. This isn't just my story, but the story of many other women out there. If you love this story, I would love to ask you for a favor. Stories like this take time and effort to put together. Kindly appreciate the effort by hitting the subscribe button. Also, share where you are watching this video from in the comment section.
Rebecca didn't cry. She was done crying. Instead, she opened her laptop and started making plans. First, she accepted the university placement formally, sent the deposit, registered for classes. Second, she searched for studio apartments near campus, found one, small, shabby, affordable. Put down a deposit using money she'd been saving for emergencies. Her emergency was drowning slowly in other people's gratitude. Third, she wrote a resignation letter to Harrison and Webb. Professional, brief, effective in 2 weeks. Fourth, she did the same for the Willows. Fifth, she went through her room and started packing. Not everything, just what was hers. Clothes, books, the few personal items she'd accumulated. It all fit in 4 boxes. 13 years of life condensed into 4 cardboard boxes. Pathetic, really. She moved methodically, quietly, over the course of a week. She didn't announce her plans, didn't explain. When her father asked if she was okay, clearly she'd been quiet even by her standards, she said she was fine. Fine, the word she'd used so often it had become meaningless. On her last Sunday, she cooked dinner as usual, roast beef this time because her father loved it. She set the table, poured water into glasses, called everyone to eat. They came, talking and laughing. Vanessa was there too, chattering about wedding venues and color schemes. She'd picked lilac and cream. Classic and elegant, she declared. Lilac, the same color Rebecca had worn as a maid of honor while watching everyone else get their happy endings. After dinner, Rebecca cleared the plates, washed them, dried them, put them away. Then she went upstairs, loaded the last box into her car, parked strategically around the corner, and drove away. She left a note on her bed. Short, simple. I've moved out. I'm going back to university. I won't be available for emergencies, loans, babysitting future children, or holiday planning. I need to focus on myself now. I hope you understand. Love, Rebecca. She didn't call it cruel. She called it clarity. The calls started at 11 p.m. Rebecca was in her new studio apartment, surrounded by boxes, eating Chinese takeout on the floor because she hadn't bought furniture yet. Her phone lit up with her father's name. She didn't answer. It rang again and again. Then James called, then Olivia, then Sophie. A cascade of confusion and concern and, underneath it all, indignation. She turned her phone off. The next morning, she found 17 missed calls and a dozen text messages. Dad, Rebecca, what's going on? Call me immediately. James, Becca, Dad's freaking out. Where are you? Olivia, this is really immature. We need to talk. Sophie, are you okay? Everyone's worried. Worried, not sorry, not we understand, just worried that their structure had collapsed. She sent one message to the family group chat. I'm safe. I'm fine. I need space. Please respect that. Then she muted the conversation. She had orientation at university in 3 days. She had syllabi to read, books to buy, a new life to build from the rubble of the old one. The lecture hall smelled like old wood and possibility. Rebecca sat in the 3rd row, notebook open, pen ready. Around her, students chatted excitedly, most of them 18, 19, smooth-faced and loose-limbed with the carelessness of people who'd never had to choose between dreams and survival. She was twice their age. Her hands looked old next to theirs. But when Professor Hartwell walked in and started talking about Virginia Woolf and the architecture of consciousness in Mrs. Dalloway, something in her chest loosened, unfurled. She took notes furiously, her handwriting cramped and eager. She'd forgotten this, the pleasure of learning something because you wanted to, not because it was useful or practical or would pay bills. After class, a girl with purple streaks in her hair turned to her. That was intense, right? I'm Zoe. Rebecca. Cool. Want to grab coffee and compare notes? I have a feeling Hartwell is going to bury us with reading." Rebecca almost said no. Old instinct, always busy, always responsible for something else. Then she remembered she wasn't responsible for anything but herself now. "Sure, I'd like that." They went to a campus cafe, talked about Woolf, about modernism, about the terror and thrill of first-year literature studies. Zoe was funny, sharp, unapologetically weird. "So, what made you come back to uni?" Zoe asked, stirring sugar into her coffee. Rebecca considered lying, then didn't. "I dropped out 13 years ago when my mother died, raised my siblings, worked, then decided I was tired of living everyone else's life." Zoe's eyes widened. "That's incredibly brave." Brave, not strong, not responsible. Brave. "Thanks," she said, and meant it. Miles away, in the house Rebecca had left, reality was setting in with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Her father stared at the bills spread across the kitchen table. Council tax, utilities, groceries, the mortgage. Things Rebecca had quietly been helping with for years, so quiet he'd stopped noticing. Without her contributions, the numbers didn't work. He called Vanessa. "Darling, we might need to postpone the wedding, just for a few months. Money's tighter than I thought." Vanessa's voice was sweet but firm. "Gerald, we've already put deposits down. Besides, I work too. We can split expenses 50-50, like modern couples do." 50-50. He hadn't split anything 50-50 in 13 years. Rebecca just handled things. Right, of course, 50-50. The wedding was scaled back significantly. No elaborate venue, no expensive photographer, registry office, pub reception. Vanessa was disappointed, but practical, a word that grated against Gerald in ways he didn't want to examine. Meanwhile, James was having his own reckoning. His car died, an old Honda that Rebecca had helped him buy 6 years ago. The mechanic quoted £1,200 for repairs. He called Rebecca. Voicemail. Called again. Voicemail. Texted, "Becca, emergency. Car's dead. Need $1,200 for repairs. We'll pay back." No response. He called Olivia. "Can you lend me $1,200 just until next month?" Olivia laughed. "Gerald, we just put a deposit down on a lake house renovation. Our accounts are wiped. Ask Dad." Gerald's broke since Rebecca left. A pause. "What do you mean since Rebecca left?" She was helping him with bills, apparently. A lot. He's struggling. Another pause. Longer. Oh. The slow dawning of understanding. Sophie, brilliant and ambitious Sophie, discovered her own problem. Her flat's heating broke in October. The landlord was useless. She needed £400 for an emergency repair. She called Rebecca. Voicemail. She called her father. "Dad, I need $400 for..." "Sophie, sweetheart, I can't right now. Things are tight." "What do you mean? You always..." Rebecca was helping more than I realized, until she left. Sophie felt something uncomfortable twist in her stomach. Can't you just ask her? She's not answering anyone. Sophie thought about her sister, about all those times Becca just handled things. Money for books, money for a laptop when hers died, money for that emergency dental appointment. When had Becca ever said no? The uncomfortable feeling intensified. 3 months into her new life, Rebecca was thriving. She'd made friends, Zoe and Marcus, different Marcus, a mature student like her, and Dr. Patel, who taught critical theory and had the sharpest mind Rebecca had ever encountered. She was getting top marks. Her essays came back with comments like, "exceptional insight," and "publish this." She worked part-time at a bookshop near campus. It paid terribly, but the owner let her read during quiet hours, and sometimes they discussed Chekhov over terrible break-room coffee. She lived in her tiny studio with secondhand furniture and plants she was learning to keep alive. She attended poetry readings. She wrote, actually wrote, her own words, her own thoughts, uninterrupted by anyone's needs. She was happy. Then the messages started changing. Olivia. "Becca, I've been thinking about things, about how much you did for us. Can we talk?" James, I get that you're mad. You have a right to be. I should have seen it sooner. I'm sorry. Sophie, I miss you. Not because I need anything. I just miss my sister. Dad, Rebecca, please. I'm trying to understand. Help me understand. The words were different now, softer, tinged with something that looked like awareness. But Rebecca had learned something crucial in her months of freedom. Apologizing for not noticing harm doesn't undo the harm. She responded briefly to Sophie, I miss you too, but I need this time. The others she left on red. December arrived with frost and expectation. Rebecca received an invitation to Christmas dinner, handwritten by her father, delivered to her studio through James, who'd tracked down her address. Please come. The house isn't the same without you. We'd really like to see you. No expectations, just family. She almost went. Old programming dies hard. Then she looked around her studio, at the books stacked beside her bed, the essay she was writing on feminist reinterpretations of fairy tales, the invitation to Zoe's holiday party pinned to her corkboard. She texted back, I have other plans, maybe in the new year. Christmas morning, she woke up in her studio, made coffee, read. Later, she went to Zoe's party, a chaotic gathering of students and friends, cheap wine and vegetarian lasagna, laughter and belonging that wasn't conditional on usefulness. No family gathering? Marcus asked, handing her a glass of wine. This is my family now, she said, and meant it. Meanwhile, at the old house, Christmas dinner was stilted. Vanessa had tried her best, but the turkey was dry, and she'd forgotten James hated cranberry sauce. Sophie kept looking at Rebecca's empty chair. Olivia's children were fussy, and there was no Aunt Becca to distract them with games and patience. It's not the same, Sophie said quietly. No one disagreed. In February, Olivia showed up at Rebecca's studio unannounced. Rebecca opened the door in pajamas, coffee mug in hand, reading glasses perched on her nose. She looked softer than Olivia remembered, younger somehow, despite the months that had passed. Liv, what are you doing here? Can I come in? Rebecca hesitated, then stepped aside. Olivia entered, taking in the small space, the books everywhere, the plants on the windowsill, the essay notes spread across the table. It looked like a life. You seem good, Olivia said. I am good. I'm glad. I wanted to apologize, really apologize, not just say sorry, but explain that I understand now what we did to you, what we took. Rebecca waited. Preston's mother got sick last month, breast cancer, and suddenly I'm the one managing her care, coordinating with doctors, researching treatment options, juggling everything while still working and raising the kids, and Olivia's voice cracked. It's been 6 weeks, Becca, and I'm drowning. 6 weeks. You did this for 13 years. Rebecca sipped her coffee, said nothing. I didn't think. None of us thought. We just took and expected you to keep giving. Yes, Rebecca said quietly. You did. I'm sorry, truly. Is there any way to make it right? Rebecca considered this. No, there isn't. You can't give me back my 20s. Can't give me back the relationships I didn't have, the experiences I missed, the person I might have been if I'd been allowed to just be young and selfish and stupid like everyone else. Olivia flinched. But, Rebecca continued, you can stop taking from everyone. Stop assuming that capable people have infinite capacity. Stop celebrating sacrifice while punishing people for stopping. I will, I promise. Good. They sat in silence for a moment. Can we be sisters again? Not the kind where you fix everything. Just sisters? Rebecca smiled, small and careful. Maybe, eventually. I'm not there yet. Okay. Olivia stood. I understand. Thank you for hearing me out. After she left, Rebecca sat in her quiet studio and cried, not from sadness, but from the strange relief of being seen. Finally, completely, as a whole person who'd been hurt and had the right to heal. Spring came, bringing exams and new growth. Rebecca was studying in her favorite campus cafe when her father appeared. He looked older, grayer, smaller somehow. Rebecca. She looked up, surprised. Dad? How did you... James told me you sometimes study here. I took a chance. He gestured to the empty chair. May I? She nodded. He sat heavily, hands folded on the table. I have been doing a lot of thinking about your mother, about you, about the difference between the two. Rebecca closed her textbook. When your mother died, I was lost, completely. I didn't know how to be a single parent, how to manage everything, and you stepped up. You were so competent, so steady. I leaned on you because I was weak, and I told myself it was temporary, that I'd get my feet under me, and then you could go back to your life. But you never did. No, I didn't. Because it was easier to let you carry it, easier to see you strong rather than struggling, easier to accept your sacrifice than acknowledge what I was asking you to give up. He met her eyes. I stole your youth, Rebecca. I let you become a mother to your siblings because I couldn't bear to fully become a father without your mother beside me. Rebecca's throat tightened. And then I met Vanessa. She's young, uncomplicated, free from all that grief. Being with her felt like starting over. I didn't think about how it felt to you, watching me choose a future with someone younger than you, someone who never gave what you gave. He shook his head. I'm ashamed, deeply ashamed. Dad, let me finish, please. He took a shaky breath. I can't undo it, can't give you back those years, but I can tell you that I see it now. See what we did. See what you sacrificed. And I can tell you that you were right to leave, right to choose yourself. Tears spilled down Rebecca's cheeks. Your mother would be furious with me, not proud, furious, because she would have wanted you to live, to have adventures, to be young and stupid and free. Instead, I let you become her replacement. I loved them, Rebecca said through tears. James and Liv and Sophie. I don't regret helping raise them. I know, but you shouldn't have to. That was my job, not yours. They cried together in that cafe, over coffee gone cold and textbooks marked with highlighter. Two people who'd lost the same woman and handled it badly in different ways. Can you forgive me? He asked finally. I don't know, Rebecca admitted. Ask me again in a few years. Fair enough. Rebecca graduated 2 years later with first-class honors. Her family came to the ceremony, all of them. Gerald and Vanessa, married now, settled into a modest life that didn't require Rebecca's financial scaffolding. James with his girlfriend, Olivia with Preston and their kids, Sophie fresh from completing her residency. They cheered when Rebecca's name was called. She walked across that stage at 37, accepting her degree with hands that shook slightly, and she felt complete in a way she never had before. After, at the celebration dinner Rebecca had organized and paid for herself, Sophie raised a glass. To Becca, who taught us that it's never too late to choose yourself. They drank to that. Later, Rebecca walked through campus alone as the sun set, golden light spilling across the quad where she'd spent 2 years reclaiming herself. Her phone buzzed, a message from Dr. Patel. The PhD program would be lucky to have you. Think about it. A PhD. More years of study, of growth, of becoming. Rebecca smiled. For the first time in her life, the future was hers to design, not an emergency to manage or a sacrifice to make, but a canvas she could paint however she wanted. She thought about the girl she'd been at 22, full of dreams and poetry and naive hope. She thought about the woman she'd become at 35, exhausted, invisible, erased. And she thought about who she was now at 37, scarred but whole, tired but free. Finally her own person. Being the perfect daughter nearly destroyed her. Being an imperfect, selfish, boundaried woman saved her.
Hi, I hope you enjoyed my story. I understand that this story may have been hard to watch, but you made it to the end. Thank you. If you are yet to subscribe to this channel, kindly hit the subscribe button and don't forget to leave a thoughtful comment so I know you enjoyed my story. Cheers!